Hello. I want to talk to you today about Helene Hadsel. Did you know that there's a missing chapter in one of her books? I just realized I should probably get this flipped around because I want to show you guys a lot of things and it won't work. Oh no. How do I do that? I always end up putting on the filters. I don't want to filter. No filters. Let's try this again. Mirror my video. That's better. I always click on the wrong thing. Welcome to Alive. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about Helene Hadsel and the missing chapter in her book. Now, if you go to my website, Words for Winning, you can get the free chapter because I've uploaded it for you to download for free. But if you're not familiar with Helene Hadsel, she's the woman that was famous for winning every prize she ever desired, including a fully furnished home. Yes, she did. And that's what she wrote about in this book, The Name It and Claim It Game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the history of Helene's writing journey, my writing journey, and I'm going to read the chapter out loud so you can see what you missed. And then if you'd like to have a copy for yourself, you can go to my website and download it for you for free. And if you have any questions about Helene, please ask them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. So, Helene Hadsel, again, there's Helene there, was famous for winning every prize she ever desired, including a fully furnished home. She was a manifesting whiz. She's very famous with her SPEC method. Select it, project it, expect it to collect it. So she wrote this book in 1971. Then, oops, I don't have them as close as I thought. Then, in 1988, she came out with a much more robust second edition. So the first part is the name of her original book, and then she added lots of chapters. So it, ineffectively tripled the book size. Then, when it went out of print, she wasn't going to stop teaching. She kept making it at home. I love this. It's like completely like extra photocopied, like it's a little blurry. And then she would Surlox it, and I think it was $12. Yeah, it was $12. If you mailed her $12 plus postage and handling, she would mail you a copy. Now this one's one of my prized possessions because it's autographed. I know, I'm very lucky. Anyway, and then in 2010, did I freeze? Oh, no. Then in 2010, in 2008, I visited her. I'll tie in the story. And she asked me to teach Maneuvers for Wishcraft. Now, if you notice, that's the subtitle of the book. She said, you need to teach Maneuvers for Wishcraft because no one else is going to teach it. And if you don't teach it, it's going to basically die with her. And then my life did a header. It was terrible. I had everything go wrong. Got a divorce, went bankrupt, nearly lost my business, had health issues. If you named it, it happened to me. It was awful. It was an awful time in my life. And she passed away 2 years later. So in 2010, she passed away. Finally, in 2019, I said to my now beau, George, hey, I got to do something with this. And I got a hold of her son, Dyke, and I said, hey, I would like to buy the rights to your mom's books because she asked me to do this over a decade ago, and I've never done anything with it. And I was like, yeah, I need to do something. So I bought the rights from him, and I began. So in 2020, I came out with this edition. So I didn't find this copy until late in 2020. Okay? So what I did was I took the 2010 digital edition that I got I was so surprised that there was a digital edition. Like, this woman never stopped teaching. She taught until the year she died. She kept updating the book. Now, she was not techie savvy at all. She would, I laughed when I had the digital edition because I could see all the stuff she did. She didn't know how to edit. And also, you got to remember, the computers back, like in 2008 and 2010, I mean, the computers and the software, totally different than today. She would just add things on with the space bar and the return key. So there was like a lot of disjointed additions to the book. So cute. Anyway, I changed it all. And at the back of the book now you'll have, this is almost identical to this edition. Plus I added a bonus section where I added in, you know, the articles that she added in disjointly. I added in articles that she had emailed to me and asked me to share with my readers, because I'm also the contest queen. Yes, I wear many crowns. That's why it's Words for Winning, because we want to win not only sweepstakes, we want to win in life. And that's what I did. So let me backtrack a little bit. So in 2004, I spent years in marketing. And I got caught in the dot-com crunch and nobody was hiring. And I had three things kind of converge in my life all at once. And one of them was sweepstakes. And I started entering as a hobby when I became pregnant. It was a great way to fill some of the time in my day. And who doesn't like to win prizes? There's millions of prizes to be won every year. I personally think sweepstaking is the best hobby. I mean, Helene agreed. She won a house. Best hobby ever. Anyway, I digress. I think that's actually one of the reasons she asked me to continue her legacy, because not only was I a writer like her, and tech savvy, which she wasn't, and entrepreneurial, which she wasn't, but I was also a sweeper or a contester, and I understood the mindset of the hobby and could help keep her alive. So anyway, I was unemployed, and then I just became a stay-at-home mom, and my husband and I ran a business, and so I just did all the back-end stuff. Plus what I did was keep entering sweepstakes. Well, I went on a winning streak, and everyone kept saying to me, what is your secret? And I said, well, I have a system, because I had taken that marketing background that I have and combined it with the hobby and got really good at winning. Because basically, sweepstakes is a form of marketing. So I understood it. Well, at that point, I was thinking of going back to work, and I was like, I don't really want to go back to work. And somebody said to me, you should write a book. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I started doing some research, and then someone said to me, why would you give away all your secrets? And I thought, that's a good question. Because what had happened is I had won, this is the big prize that we had won at that time, in 2004, was I got to go to Bob Bloomer's house. Now, he was on Food Network. He was a chef, and we went dinner at his house. And the promo people came with us, and people from the network. It was so fun, and he cooked dinner for everybody. And we had a tour of his house, and he was a wine collector, so I brought him some ice wine and took him some gifts. You don't show up to somebody's house empty-handed. And at one point in the evening, he said, he said, in front of his butcher block, he said, this is at the center of my universe. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting thing to tell strangers. And then he said it again, and I went, that's a message for me. I intuitively knew that that was a message for me. So I took that information, and I came home, and I said to my girlfriend, I told her the story, and she said, well, what was the center of your universe? And I said, contesting. And then I thought, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? I thought, well, it's a piece to a puzzle. I'll get the rest of the puzzle later. Then when I had somebody tell me to write a book, I thought, And so I was going back to her house to talk about it. And I passed a service announcement board in a church, and it said, you can't lose helping others win. And I went, oh my God, that is a message for me. And I instantly knew that I was going to write the book. When I did publish my first book, You Can't Win If You Don't Enter. By the way, this was supposed to be purple. I have no idea what happened to the printers. That is not purple. You can't win if you don't enter. I took a copy back to that church and said, those signs change people's lives. And he said, the pastor said, you have no idea how many times people come into the church and say that. Now, the problem was, my intention was to write one book. I'm on book 8, by the way, so anyway, my intention was to write one book. And I discovered there was differences between Canada and the United States when it came to the hobby of sweepstakes. And I didn't understand it enough at that time to write one book. So what I did was I came out with a Canadian edition of You Can't Win If You Don't Enter. And then I printed 2 years later the American edition of You Can't Win If You Don't Enter. And that's when Helene had asked me to write her book. Because, see, I had a podcast. Yeah, I had a podcast in 2008. Oh my God, if I had kept it up, I'd probably have more followers than Mr. Rogan. I wish I had kept that up. I would have been the grandmother of podcasts. I'd like to say mother, but I'm in my 50s. And my stepsister's already grandma, so... Anyway, so I had this book out, and I had Helene on my show, and off air, I said to her, I'd like to come visit you, and she said no. Well, if you've read In Contact with Other Realms, you would know Helene is extremely intuitive. 3 days later, she phones me back and says, your guides are so loud, you better come visit. And I thought, so honestly, I think her and I had a soul contract, and I was destined to take over her legacy. So that's what I think. So then this year, so finally, and 2 years ago, I put in my vision board, I wanted to do an Audible book. I had people asking me for Audible edition of her Name It and Claim It game. I had people asking me for other languages. Those things take some time and money. And actually, I saw a comment, Sandy, if you go to my Contest Queen website, I'm having a contest right now to win one of 5 Audible copies of this book. And I'm always holding, once a month or more, I'm holding contests, and you could win this book or any of my other books that you wish, right? So I highly recommend you do that. Anyway, so I went to her house, and that's when she told me that. Then in the when I started coming out of this dark night that I got thrown into after she asked me to do her books, and then I didn't do anything with them. Finally, in 2016, I came out with How to Win Cash, Cars, Trips, and More, because by then I understood the hobby, and I was able to finally write an updated second edition and smash them together. The third edition, Prizes Everywhere, is coming out before December 31st. I don't have a publication date because I'm on a crazy publication schedule, and I don't have actual dates for when things are coming out. I'm just pumping out books as quick as I can. So the third edition, Prizes Everywhere, will be out at the end of this year. So then, in 2000 and... No, oh my God, I don't even know what year it is. This is why I'm doing so many books. So in 2 years ago, I put on my vision board that I wanted to do the Audible book and eventually do translations. So right now, Prizes Everywhere is also being translated into Spanish. I'm so excited. And then this guy is amazing, I found. So I will be doing one book after another. So as soon as he's done this one, I'm going to give him this one. So he's going to start. So I might have 2 Spanish, fingers crossed, I might have 2 Spanish editions this year. How exciting. And I will be doing other languages, but I'm doing one at a time. Like it's a lot of work. So more languages will probably come in 2024, but we need to start with one at a time, right? We need to focus and see how it goes, and then, see what countries need. Anyway, so I started doing the Audible book this year. I found a producer that lives close. He has a studio, so it's really excellent. Like I've had people say to me, "Oh, just record it at home." I'm like, first of all, this house is not soundproof. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the software. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how to edit audio files. Like, no, I'm not. Helene asked me to maintain her legacy. Do you think I'm going to record her book in my office here? No, I'll do live streams. But no, I mean, I've had instances where, someone will slam the back door and you could hear it on the live. Or, something will happen. I'm like, no, doorbell ring. Ding, no. Yeah, no, we're not doing that for a book. Did it in a proper studio with an editor who knew how to do everything. It sounds so professional. The other thing is I narrated it. I wasn't sure if I was going to narrate the book or not, but I did a poll on my Facebook and everyone said, Helene asked you to do it, because I said, should I hire a narrator that sounds like Helene? And they said, no, she asked you to do it, you do it. Now, I am going to be doing Tag Powell's books, and I am hiring a male narrator for that because I feel like his book should be narrated with a man that sounds similar to him. So while I'm recording, I can't remember what happened, but we had an issue. And so I said, okay, the next time I come in, I'm bringing all the books. So I brought in all these editions with me to the producer's studio. Okay, we had all of them. So now we're flipping through. We're trying to make sure because Amazon, when you're selling books on Amazon and Kindle, they like the Audible book, because they also own Audible, to be as close to the print edition as possible. Now, there are some changes, because I'll show you for an example. The introduction right here starts out with an exciting challenge for you, the reader. Now, when you're doing Audible, you have to say, an exciting challenge for you, the listener. So it's all these little things that you have to change. Or, for example, I added in some, or this one's a good example. This is a picture that her grandson drew that she says, this is a copy of what he submitted. So then I change it to, and a copy of what he submitted can be found in the attached PDF. So there's a PDF that comes with the Audible book. So if you buy the Audible book, then you get a link or something. I have no idea how they do it. But we created a PDF. It's got the exact cover, and then it has, all the things. It looks very similar to the free chapter that you can get on my website on Words for Winning, because I just used the template my webmaster created, so now they're all going to look the same. So actually, I'm going to go back. You can get a free chapter of the Name It and Claim It game too, not the missing chapter, like a free updated chapter. And it's not as pretty, so I'm thinking, I'm going to go back and update it. It's because now I have this template. So I think I'll be updating eventually. I'll get them to give me the covers, and I'll just go through and I'll update all the free sample PDFs so they're all pretty, which is kind of nice. That's the thing when you have a website, you're always updating. So we're going through, anyway, I'm at the producer's office. We're trying to figure out this thing to make sure that they're the same. I'm flipping through the first edition, and I notice a chapter, because I've edited this thing back and forth, upside and down, sideways, and I notice, what is taking you so long? And I thought, oh my God, there's another chapter. Now we're so far into the book, and also editing a whole new chapter in. This wasn't going to happen. Also, I was reading it, and I'm like, this doesn't sound very contesty, even though I do have some not very contesty chapters in the book, because that's what the producer was complaining about. But this one's fitting into that. And then some of it was completely new, and then some of it sounded extremely familiar. I was like, Then I realized, so when she did this, Tag Powell, now you might see, if you go to Words for Winning, you'll see Tag Powell's name there, because I also bought the rights to all of his books and his wife's books, because I had a problem. Now, this is where it's interesting. I had a problem with Amazon, and they said, you have to fix this in the Name It and Claim It game, or we're going to take down the book. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I wanted to also make sure, I did fix the problem clearly, but one of the things I wanted to do is I went to all the previous publishers and got letters stating that they didn't have any copyright claim left on the books. So this one was done by Top of the Mountain Publishing in Largo, Florida. So I started looking all over. Of course, they were closed, but I discovered it was owned by Tag Powell. And I'm like, why does that name sound familiar? And then I found a book in Helene's files. This is actually not the book. It was the first edition of this, but it's off being digitized because I'm going to be republishing it too. But I found she had a first edition. I'm like, I knew that name. Turns out Tag Powell, so if you remember in reading the books, she was friends with Jose Silva and his PR assistant. Well, Tag Powell was a Silva instructor, so she met Tag Powell through Jose Silva. And not so coincidentally, I'm currently enrolled in Silva instructor classes, and I'm on the path to become a Silva instructor myself. And I'm like Helene, who helped Jose Silva at all his events. I'm helping Stephen Dobos of Silva Canada run the Silva classes here. So that's happening in September. Very parallel stuff going on here. I'm not sure where it's going to end up, which is kind of exciting, right? Like, I'm on a road. I have no idea where it's going. It's very exciting. Anyway, I was fortunate enough to meet Tag before he passed. He passed away 2 weeks ago, and he was 85, and he had COPD. He had a stroke. He had COPD. I wanted to record him and ask him a lot of questions, and I asked him about things, but sadly, the stroke had made his memory a little Swiss cheesy, and I didn't feel it was right. And then also, he had a lot of trouble breathing. I was actually really sad about that. Anyway, that chapter didn't appear in the book that he published with Helene. So I'm assuming there was a very good reason they took this chapter out. So it does make sense not to put it back in. And then, of course, half of it can be found in this book called, it's called The Messenger. So it's like the third or fourth chapter. She took that and then she put it in her second book, right? So I hope that clears things up. And I started down this rabbit hole because someone, and they tell authors to never do this, never read your Amazon reviews. And I read one that irked the heck out of me because they felt that I had taken some of Helene's teachings out of this edition, and that's why these books were so valuable. But that's not true. I know, because I've line edited every book to make sure that it's in the new one, except for the missing chapter, which then is in this book. So it's not really removed, is it? Anyway, I rewrote it out. You can go to wordsforwinning.com and download it for free. And look I've been dealing with this book so long, and it's so old that the whole thing has popped out. The binding is completely gone. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this chapter to you. And then I'm going to show you something cool. So what's taking you so long? Tuesday evening, May 25th, 1971, Maya Perez, the well-known psychic from Balboa, California, was in Dallas, Texas to give a lecture on reincarnation and visualization. So in 1971, Helene Hatzel at that point was still living in the house that she had won in 1965. And if you go through my TikTok feed, you can see that house. I have a picture. When I went down to get the remains of her business files, I drove to the house. I kind of wish I'd knocked on the door. I keep thinking I should go back to Texas. And I filmed outside of the house. and said this is the house she won. And it's very cool. She talks about more about the house in in 2 books. She talks about the house in The Name It and Claim It Game and in Confessions of an 83-Year-Old Sage. And she tells different stories. But at one point, there were like only 3 houses in the whole area, and it was in the middle of nowhere. Guess what? When I went there, in the middle of everywhere. Kind of crazy. I think if I ever won the lottery, I would go buy the house. I don't know why. I don't even know if I'd want to live in Texas. I do love Texas, but, you know, my family's here. Anyway. But it would be kind of cool, right? And I imagine since then it's been renovated. Anyway, Maya is a noted lecturer as well as a psychic. Jess Stern's book, Door to the Future, relates some of Maya's, actually it's Maya, I don't know why I'm saying Maya, impressions and predictions. After a most interesting lecture, a question and answer session followed. This is what made Audible funny, because when you're reading a book, you don't actually have paper with you. I have to have my iPad, and I have to have a digital edition, so I'm scrolling, make no noises. One time I was hungry, because we'd gone so long, I was getting hungry, and the producer's like, "What's that noise?" And I'm like, I think that's my tummy rumbling. Like, the mic is so sensitive, he could hear just even the littlest gurgle in my tummy. And then sometimes I'd muck up, you know, I'd read a sentence wrong. Oh, can we do it again? He'd back up not the tape, but I don't know what you call it. Wherever you slice it in, he could punch it in. He was so good. During this portion of the program, Maya beckoned me from the audience to come on stage and share with the audience some of the impressions she was picking up about me. I was seated in the front row at the program. Maya claimed she was picking up information about a person while being in a person's vibrations. So we all have an aura around us, and I guess that's if she was in someone's auric field. Some people say it's 6 feet out. Some people say it's much further out. That's why when someone comes into a room, sometimes you can feel the energy right away. Well, here we go. It seems the expression, "nothing is hidden that shall not be revealed," comes home to me more and more as I meet with unusual psychic people. One of the first things Maya commented on was the fact that I was in the process of losing a great deal of weight. See, this is why I think it really wasn't in the Name It and Claim It game, because it's, it doesn't have anything to do with positive thinking. It does in a way, but it's not really tied in. She said I had the discipline to control the tendency to be a compulsive eater when I am frustrated. You accomplish nothing by continuing to blame your present obesity on emotional frustration, she stressed. Within several months, you will have a slim, trim figure. She had no way of knowing that I had already begun my program of diet to lose 25 pounds, quick-like, before a trip I was planning to take in August. I admitted to Maya that I indeed was in the process of shedding 25 pounds of excess weight. From 170 pounds, now she says I hide my head in shame. I think she meant I hung my head in shame. I wanted to slim down to 140 pounds by trip time sometime in August. Well, from 170 to 140 is 30 pounds, but I didn't change it because it was her typo, so I left it. Other things I did, I kind of fixed the grammar here and there. But, I left it. I think it's funny. But of course I would lose the weight by trip time, and I was really pleased to hear her confirm my convictions. For the reader who has a weight problem, or in this case, the listener that has a weight problem, might I share a technique that probably is one of the most beneficial factor in my dieting program. I have, or should I say had, an insatiable appetite for sweets. I did fine for several days on cheese, meat, and vegetables, but sometimes the urge for candy became so strong I made a trip to the candy counter for chocolate-covered peanuts and ate until I was satisfied. That, of course, blew my diet. So I'm admitting I'm immature. Oh, Bobby Lee, reading with your finger. Well, I am a little bit because I'm looking up and down at the camera and back. And if I don't stay on track, I'm just going to lose it. And look, this page is coming out. That's the other reason I'm kind of holding the book I'm kind of holding the book together, which is very funny. And actually, when I was doing the Audible book, I was reading with my hands. So like I was talking, like I was giving a lecture. And also I'm holding it up because I don't want to be looking down. I mean, that doesn't make fun for a talk. Okay, so 888. So I'm admitting I'm immature and somehow need to be reminded that I'm in control of the body and the body does not control me. The technique that reminded me I was in control of all eating goes like this. First, I made a list of the foods that tempt me. The high-calorie items such as chocolate-covered peanuts, ice cream, nut brownies, and caramel sauces happened to appeal to my taste buds. Second, I closed my eyes and mentally imagined I saw myself rejecting all the calorie-packed goodies that were not included on my diet program. 3, rather than deprive myself and not eat when I had the craving for sweets, I mentally replaced the high-calorie items with crisp carrot sticks, cool thin cucumber slices, and sweet wedges of cantaloupe. I imagined the low-calorie items were much tastier than the high-calorie items. In other words, I was conning myself for a calorie countdown. I did this mental exercise during the day or whenever I felt tempted to those no calorie counters. May I say that this technique is so effective that I'm able to resist successfully all the foods I once craved. Today, 2 weeks later, I've lost 10 pounds by following my diet program. Might I suggest that you program yourself with this technique often because what you actually are doing is replacing one habit with another and it takes repeated practice to incorporate it into your consciousness. Now, if you read the Name It and Claim It game, you'll remember that tip number 3, so she had a 4-step spec method, but she also had a 3-part manifesting method. The first one was set a goal. The second one was have no doubt. And the third one was you can con yourself into anything. So she's basically doing that here. I can con myself. She can con herself into anything. Okay. Okay. There are many diets and hundreds of books written on the subject, but whatever program you happen to follow and you have a hang up on the sweet bits as I did, you better believe that this technique works. Okay. Getting on with Maya's other impressions as she tuned in on me, I found this statement to be most interesting. She said I was to be a great spiritual writer. In fact, that was my purpose this lifetime. As I mentioned earlier, she believes in reincarnation. Fact is, I'm presently writing a book, the one you are now reading, or in this case listening to, about my personal experiences. I found this statement doubly interesting because it's not the first time I was told I would be writing. I must share an experience. Now this is where, so that first part is not in any other book. But this second part that I'm about to read you is the messenger chapter in the In Contact with Other Realms. I must share an experience that could have been responsible for planting a seed in my subconscious many years ago, and I'm now acting upon that suggestion. When I was 16 years old, I was confined in bed for 3 months due to rheumatic fever that racked my body with pain. At that time, 1940, medical science had little to offer a person that had this serious and sometimes fatal disease. 2 of my classmates also had the malady at the time I was confined. One died of the disease, and the other boy lived 5 years before he too died of heart valve damage. At the time, only bed rest and pain-killing drugs were the treatment to keep fever down and to dull pain. I was brought up in a very religious, church-oriented environment. In fact, for 8 years, I attended a parochial school taught by nuns. I went to Mass every morning, went to confession every Friday, and was taught we live in sin. If we ate meat on Friday, or if we missed Mass on Sunday, or a church holiday of holy day of obligation, we committed a mortal sin. I was made aware of purgatory, where one might burn in a fire until all one's sins were cleansed, or worse than that, I would go to hell if I died with a mortal sin in my soul. Of course, I swallowed all of this hook, line, and thinker. You see, I didn't know any better. I prayed, and prayed to get well as I lay in bed, but there was no change. I had a perfect horror of dying because I wasn't sure about having a clean bill of thoughts to make heaven, and was just the idea that I might have a mortal sin and the possibility of going to hell or purgatory sent me into hysterics. After 3 months, imagine she's 16, this poor girl, 16 years old, in pain for 3 months lying in bed. And little or no improvement. One morning I overheard the family doctor, he made 2 house calls a week to look in on me, tell my mother that my heart was indicating damage and he could do very little more for me. That night, I mustered up all the courage a 16-year-old frightened girl can gather, and I decided I wanted to die. I gave it serious thought, for I was weary of constant pain and tired of the bed. Why, even if I did have to go to purgatory for a spell and then get burned up for a bit, I could still get into heaven eventually, I told myself. Anything would be better than continuing in this situation with the outlook of death from this disease. Anyway, that is what I told myself, and the following morning I wanted to die. I just mentally set up the idea. I thought about it all night long and didn't change my mind. When the light of the morning appeared, that morning I verbally uttered out loud, "Okay, if there's a God or an angel near, I want you to know I'm now ready to die. I'm tired of being in pain and not getting any better. So there's only one thing left, to die, and I don't want to drag this out any longer. I want to die. Do you hear me?" Well, what do you know? Somebody heard me, or so it seemed. For as soon as I made the demand to die, there appeared a rather young, serene-looking man. At first I thought, wow, that's fast service. Somebody is already here to pick me up. No, I wasn't in heaven, and the cool, calm, collected young man wasn't Jesus. Of that I was positive. The figure did have a rather bright yellow glow about him. He reminded me of one of the holy pictures of saints I was given by the nuns when I made good grades in school. The young man standing at the foot of my bed had such an air of peace and love radiating for him that I was startled for a moment. But I do recall that I had no fear of his presence. A man in my bedroom bit. What do you know? He was not there to take me away. He merely said, "What makes you think you're going to die, little girl? You have too much to live for and too much to do." He was real, or so it seemed to my mind's eye, so I started a conversation with him. I was still determined to die, for I remember asking, "And just what can I do tied to this bed?" Then he smiled and replied, "You are healed, and you will return to your studies. Later in life, you'll be inspired to write your many experiences so that many may learn from you. This is the purpose of your life, and you will be guided when the time comes." Then he seemed to fade away as if disappearing through the wall. Well, you better believe I was one excited teenager. I yelled for my mother to come quickly. After I related the experience and insisted that a man was actually here and said I was healed, she came to the bedside table, opened the drawer, took out the thermometer to take my temperature. It happened to be normal. She then looked rather strangely at me and made me promise not to tell anyone, for it sounded crazy and it was only a dream. Thinking back at the incident, she may have been concerned that my mind was being affected by the illness. The following morning, my feet touched the floor for the first time in 3 months. Within a week, I joined the family at the dinner table, and the following week I was back in school. I pushed the incident to the back of my mind and told no one. In all the following years, I never thought of the experience again. If I did, I promptly dismissed it. The first of this year, 1971, yeah, can you believe it's been more than 50 years since she wrote this book? I had a strong impression to write a book about my contest-winning experiences, hoping it might in some way clue people in that we all have the ability to use wishcraft. My intentions were to keep the book serious, sometimes silly, and occasionally sermonette-ish, for that is how I express myself. I like to be sunny and punny, for as far as I'm concerned, there's enough humglum Doomsville, USA mental energy around. That so sounds like Colleen. As I sat at the typewriter in my study typing up my experiences for the book, I kept looking at the blank wall in front of me so I could capture the appropriate words to express my thoughts. One evening my eyes seemed to be playing tricks, for I saw what appeared to be a young man, a gentle, calm, serene expression, with outstretched arms and eyes turned toward the sky. He seemed to be emanating a feeling of being pleased about something, as if the floodgates were opened. The memory and recognition of this vision rushed towards my curious mind. There is so much we do not know yet about the mind, memory, imagination, and so at this time I have no logical explanation of what brought this about. Some might say I was hallucinating. Others might think I'm illuminating and might declare me a saint. 'Tis all still a big question mark what actually happened. I will continue to seek answers to many of the questions that arise daily. The following evening, I had a repeat visit of the vision, and this time I hurriedly sketched my impression of the figure on a sheet of paper. The following morning, I found myself at the lumberyard buying a sheet of plywood 3 by 5 feet in size, and then stopped at an art supply shop to buy 4 tubes of oil paint. White, yellow, black, and tan were the only colors I felt impressed to buy. I certainly am not an artist, but I had a very strong urge to try my hand at painting a study of my visitor. I got the idea to fold a double sheet of newspaper lengthwise. Taking scissors, I began cutting. Sort of, as I did. Yeah, I think I fixed that in the book. Sort of as I did as a child, cutting out half the paper dolls and then unfolding the sheet to complete the figure. The result in all this instance was a silhouette of a man, halo and all. I then traced the paper figure on the board and was quite pleased with the results, for it was a very good likeness of my visitor. Then the thought occurred, what about details such as expression of eyes, background and details? It will come. It will come. I kept thinking it came. For any of the links that you're looking for, go to the link in my bio, and it's right there. I did remember to update it before I went live. So it makes it easy for you. It's right there. It's a long URL, and it's very difficult to put those out here. For in 3 nights, I had completed the painting. I even sketched impressions of other figures I had imagined I'd seen at various times in my dreams. Teachers in the Classroom of Learning seemed to be the appropriate title for the painting. I now tried to analyze if perhaps I'd seen a similar picture in one of the many museums I visited while in Europe. That might be the logical explanation how I came about painting the picture. I do so wish I had more answers, for I'm sure some of you may have had similar experiences and too have the question. Hopefully, as time passes, I might be enlightened on much of what is happening. A most interesting incident occurred after I hung the picture. I have it displayed in a very prominent place in my home. We had guests one evening, and a gentleman commented on the painting. Helen, no man is perfect. Oh, I have a whole video on Helen versus Helene. Watch my interview with Sarah Jordan on blueprints and numerology. That's why there's a difference between Helen and Helene. Helen, no man is perfect, yet I'm intrigued as to how perfectly you have both sides of this figure. He didn't know about my cutout technique. I uttered the first thought that came, perhaps in defense, for I said, what makes you think this man is in a physical body? He's perfect only to me, for that is the way I saw him. Are we not all striving for perfection and balance? Perhaps if we can acquire a balance and maintain it, we too can possess a perfect physical body. You know, that's a good thing to strive for, isn't it? 'Tis interesting when Maya commented on the fact I'd be doing spiritual writing. I certainly wouldn't call this book spiritual, perhaps spirited might be a better word. Yeah, her next books are really spiritual. Maya also claimed that in one lifetime she and I were sisters, also that we had the same knowledge of truth. Another interesting observation I feel I must share with you. While Maya was talking, she kept stressing visualization and repeated many of the concepts I lecture on in my series of positive thinking programs. One last comment she made, you will be going to Egypt within several years. There you will meet 2 persons. I must refer to them as masters, for you will be given many answers by these masters to enable you to better understand. After meeting with the masters, you will start writing in earnest with a sincere, dedicated purpose. Yeah, it's interesting because her next books came far later. Like the edition of the, yeah, you see that there's the messenger that she drew and the people. And this one came out in 2001. So there's a huge gap in her books. And I have some of her computer files, but I don't have any of her journals. This comment I found most interesting. For several years ago, I announced to my husband that I wanted to visit Egypt and India, and I've set a date of August of 1972 to make the trip. So I don't know if she ever went. I have no records of any of that. In closing this chapter, I must repeat, anything I can do, you can do better. I firmly believe it. I recall reading that Jesus was said to have uttered, "All these things I do, you can do, and more." That is said, he walked on water, healed the sick, mastered bilocation, and was most proficient in the practice of precipitation, multiplying the loaves of fishes, changing water into wine. Gads, what a challenge we are facing. I only have one question at this time. What is taking us so long? So there you go. That's the missing chapter, and you can find it on my website. I have it for you. And then, so I'll just show you the history of the changes. So these are my books, and you can't win if you don't enter Canadian. You can't win if you don't enter US. A combined second edition, How to Win Cash, Cars, Trips, and More. And Prizes Everywhere will be out later this year. So that's the third and final edition. I don't see myself writing a fourth sweepstakes book, but I've learned to never say never because things can change on a dime. So at this time, I don't see myself writing a fourth sweepstakes book, but who knows? Because I've got about 10 books to write. So then Helene's path was the Name It and Claim It Game 1, the Name It and Claim It Game 2, then she was doing the Name It and Claim It Game 3, and then I redid the Name It and Claim It game. And then she had, actually I didn't pull them out, I have them up here too, I have more books. So then she did In Contact with Other Realms, and then I republished In Contact with Other Realms. And then she had, there's a couple more books here too. Then she did Confessions of an 83-Year-Old Sage, and I redid it, Confessions of an 83-Year-Old Sage. And then she wrote a book. Now, Confessions of an 83-Year-Old Sage, she only self-published. Like, there was no... that one's also autographed. Actually, I should scan... I was thinking about that. I'm going to scan her signature and use it on stuff. And then she wrote... This is the other one she self-published. So in those days when you self-published... she just did it herself, right? This was 2008, 2 years before she passed away. Unless you wrote her and ordered a copy, they just weren't to be had. So I redid A Man Called Friday. Now this is a fiction book. Now this is what I love about Helene. The woman's in her 70s, and she decides that she wants to learn how to write fiction. Now fiction writing is completely different than nonfiction. It's a whole new ball of wax or kettle of fish or whatever you want to call it. She took a fiction writing class and she wrote a whole book. She had an idea for a story and ran with it. And she was actually, I found some notes, she was going to write it with somebody else and then she didn't do it. And it took her about 10 years to write this, like off and on here and there. And I found a lot of different edits, like where she changed a lot of things. And I think her granddaughter edited it with her. Anyway, you can buy it now. A Man Called Friday. It's kind of fun. She took all of her different experiences and combined them into a fictional story. So you can kind of, the only flaw with this book, I think, is sometimes you can hear her voice. And I think you're not supposed to hear the author's voice when you read. Does that make any sense? Anyway, then, just because, you know, I'm not busy enough, then I bought Tag Powell stuff. So I'm working with the Silva organization to republish the Silva Mind Mastery Method. And then this year, I'm publishing Tag Powell's book, Money and You. I'm going to be starting on this one next week. So it's already been digitized. It just now needs the edit part. So it's coming. So this one will be out this fall. And I'm hiring, like I said, a male narrator. So I'm hoping that one, depending on the timing, may or may not be out this year, the Audible for this. But I'm also going to get it translated into Spanish. Because now that I found a good translator. And then he also wrote Think Wealth. Now I have a bunch of other books too. And then there's some audio series that hopefully will be up on my website soon. So there's lots of things happening. So I'm on track to publish 5+ books by the end of the year. Holy cramoly. Usually I do a book a year or 2 at most. And I'm going to do like 6 this year. Just cause. Let's go. So that's quite exciting. So that's the path. Those are the books that are published. Those are books that are coming. There's different editions, there's different languages. I'm making sure that this information gets out to as many people as possible, which is what both Tag and Helene wanted. So I'm hoping they both... the reason I got Tag's books is because of that whole incident. I ended up mailing him all of Helene's books, and he was so impressed with how I updated them that when I was talking to him and I said, well, who's taking care of your legacy? Because it was very clear he was at the end of his path here. And he said, no one. And I said, well, can I buy the rights to your books and get your stuff back out there? And he was like, yeah, because he could see, because he, like he had done this one, and then I showed him this one, and he was just like, wow. He just couldn't get over how the change. And let's face it, computers are so much different now. Printing techniques are so much different now. Like, things are so different. Just the graphics, websites, social, things that weren't available back in the day. And so it was easy for me to purchase the rights because he knew I would also maintain his legacy and his wife's legacy the same way I did Helene's. And so he trusted me, which was, I'm very blessed to be trusted, because that's a big deal. Trust me, if you write books or you have any kind of project like this, these are your babies. You don't give them to anybody to maintain. And I know at some point in my life, there will be someone I have to hand the gauntlet off to. I don't know who or when, but it'll happen one day. And I'm going to make sure that that person can maintain not just mine, but everybody's legacy. So it's going to be a bigger undertaking for the next person. But I was told, because my favorite author who changed my life, do I have his book out? You think I would have it out because I keep talking about him, but I do have the Kindle edition because I have it on Kindle and paperback, because one time I lent out the paperback and I lost it. Then I never got it back. So I've bought a couple of them since. But his book is... Let me see if I can get it up here for you guys. His name is Robert Ohotto. He's finally starting to do stuff on social media. Finally. It's Transforming Fate into Destiny by Robert Ohotto. He's Intuitive Robert Ohotto here on TikTok. And he has YouTube and Instagram and a website. And this book changed my life in countless ways. Like, I can't even tell you. This, if I had to pick one book that changed, you think it would be this book because now I'm doing her work. But it's this book, and I'll tell you why. Robert used to do readings, and he's extremely intuitive, hence intuitive. He's an intuitive astrologer. So what he does is he takes your birth chart and he would read your soul path, like your destiny, your what you're here, what your soul agreed to do when it came here. Ugh. Anyway, so this was like 2013, and that's when I had gone. My life was in the toilet. So if you like astrology, Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008. My Sun, my Moon, and my Mercury are all in Capricorn. So Pluto was just, they say it's the planet of destruction and rebirth. And boy, I am the person that goes into the cycle is not the person that comes out of the cycle. And I 100% have changed. Like, everything's changed. Where I live, not necessarily what I do for a living, so to speak, but how I do it for a living has changed. So I'm still writing, I'm still marketing, but that has completely changed the format of what I do. Who I'm living with, all that kind of thing. Anyway, the treat I gave myself from the divorce was he was still doing readings at the time, so I bought myself a reading. Now, it was very expensive, but I figured if I had done a year of therapy, I would have spent like 10 times what I paid him. And I'm going to get more answers from him in 1 hour than I am for the whole thing. Anyway, so I had a reading with him, and it was very interesting because Venus had just gone retrograded to Capricorn, and I was going through a divorce. and he was sitting in Capricorn energy. So I turned around and had a reading with him. One of the things that he said to me was, because I was just the contest queen, like that's the way I thought. And he said, no, she's not the mountain. She's just part of the mountain. He said, I see you doing other things. And he said, one of the things I see you doing is working with other spiritual teachers. And he says, the contest queen won't go away, but you'll say stuff like, he says, I can see a panel, like you may see these sometimes on Facebook or Instagram. They'll have a promotion for, we're doing this summit and there's all these great spiritual teachers and you pay like $147 and you get access to all the videos and you can ask them questions and you get PDFs and all this stuff. And he says, I see you he says, I don't think it'll look like this, but this is the only explanation I can come up with. And you'll be with all these teachers, and then at the end you go, oh, and by the way, I'm a contest queen, so I'm also having a giveaway. And I was like, okay. And I thought, what the heck? I don't know. So in 2019, I bought Helene's stuff, and this year I bought all of Tag's stuff. And after I bought Tag's stuff, I was sitting there and I was thinking, because I bought his stuff and his wife's stuff, and I went, Robert's right. I'm doing it, but I'm doing it with books because I'm the contest queen. I'm doing Helene's books. I'm doing Tag's books. I'm doing Judith's books. I'm also going to be coming out with, I want to come out with a workbook. This book, I don't know if anybody's ever bought this book by Yannick Silver. It's so whimsical. I just love this journal. It's like he wrote it and then just printed it, because it's even in color. I wouldn't go color. And some of the writing is so difficult to read. So I don't want to do that. Right? Like, look how tiny. But what I do like is the whimsy of some of these pages like that, where you can write out your thoughts, right? So I want to do a workbook for the Name It and Claim It game with a bit of whimsy. And also, they're always having half price sales at Hay House. So I think, and I don't know if they still have the sale on, but Robert's book was on sale half price. And this one's usually on half price. So I highly recommend. This is so fun. As you can see, I've never written in it because I haven't had a chance to go through it, but I just loved it so much I bought it. Yeah, workbook. So 2024, I want to do a workbook, but I need some help. I'm going to have to hire a graphic person to help me because I have all these ideas, but I don't have the skill set. You know what they say, sell your strengths, hire your weaknesses, right? That's why I have a webmaster. I can get the form stuff. So what I'll do is I'll go in, I'll do a web page, and I'll kind of just place things where I think they should go in the verbiage. I do all and then I just let him go and make it pretty. So if you ever come across a page that's like under construct, like our whole Words for Winning is still under construction. There's a ton of pages that are in draft. But every couple of days I'm in there and I'm like adding stuff and posting things. And so it's getting more and more robust as we go along. Like we just added the social links at the bottom. Eventually we'll have them on the top when we finish the main banner section, because that's clearly not finished. But there's blogs going up. I'm doing a blog a week. I'm still got to write the freebie for the mailing list. I want to do a little booklet of affirmations and quotes to give away free if you sign up for my newsletter. So everyone that signs up, I'll eventually name it, send that out to everybody. In New Zealand, just go to Amazon. It's on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, Kobo, Apple Books, and Google Books. And iTunes. So you have to be able to find it somewhere, because I do push it for global rights, because I have the global rights to these books. So if you can't find it, you have to email me and let me know, because it should be there. It should be there. Anyway. And the Audible one you can still enter, because that one's worldwide, because I'm sending a code. I usually don't do mailing books internationally because it's like $25 a book for me to mail. That's just the postage. That doesn't include any of the other costs. It's very expensive to send books internationally. And then sometimes they take months and get lost, so I don't always trust them. So I want to do a workbook. I want to do more translations. I eventually have an idea for a book called Winning is an Inside Job, What was the book written by Robert? It's called Transforming Fate into Destiny. My Kindle's still live. It's blue, and there's his name, Robert Ohotto. And oh my God, go watch some of his stuff on YouTube. Now, if you have Facebook, he has more videos up on Facebook than he does on YouTube because he monitors YouTube better. And he's changing his stuff around. He's going to come out with a podcast soon, and he's going to start doing more social live streams. He's finally shifting his business around. Yeah, we all go through this growth period, right? So he's going to be doing more live streams. So that's going to be exciting. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I ended up doing this. And I just think he was right. I just doing it with books and not, and bringing all this knowledge back to life. Like, like these books by Tag, oops, a little shaky there, phenomenal. Like, these need to come back into print. Like, if you go like to thrift books and stuff, you can't find these. And there's all sorts of stuff. Like, we've got a scan. I had him sign it too before he passed. So you can see this was at the end because his signature is very wiggly. But oh my gosh, what a man. But look at that. So this is, I'm going to, when I'm doing this book, like, I'm going to try and keep some of his whimsy. I do try and keep, the whimsy. And also, I'm going to be doing similar things to what I do. And then we're going to see if we can't recreate some of the graphics better. Like, he has this, but I mean, I don't know how good the graphics going to be when I scan it. So we might recreate some of this stuff. This is, you're supposed to write your check to yourself. Remember, Jim Carrey did that technique. And then he's got like different fonts and things. So I'm going to try and do that. And then usually what I do is I keep mine in like these. He's done his in Times Roman. So I'll probably do Arial for me. And that way you can tell what I write and what he writes. Like it's notes, I'll put in notes and then, like at the end, like his book just ends. Like it's the Alphomatic Secrets, but I'll have an afterword and a resources section. So I add a bunch of things. And look, they had a little drawing of him. You can see what he looked like. And then actually there was a video. If you go online onto my YouTube, I have a video that he did. I managed to get a video out of his house. His sister-in-law wasn't very happy with me. And I put it on the TV, I had it digitized, and I put it on YouTube. So you can go watch a show he was on in like the 80s. It's so fun. And then I did an unboxing of everything that I brought back from his house. And I even got some crystals because he had a huge bowl of crystals. And his sister-in-law and George went out to get dinner for all of us. And I said, Tag, can I have some of the crystals? And he's like, sure. And I just went and I grabbed a handful. I have some of the crystals from his house. I got like a smoky quartz and a selenite and just some regular quartz. And I actually got Helene's crystals, and I got her crystal ball. Now, her tarot cards that she talks about, and no, I haven't used it yet. That's another thing I need to get to the stage of doing, is I want to start using her crystal ball. But I've got a lot on my plate. Anyway, I think I've covered everything. And if you want to win from me, follow me both on Words for Winning and Contest Queen, because of course I'm the Contest Queen. I'm going to have giveaways everywhere. And so if you go to Words for Winning, I have a giveaway going on right now. And I'm going to have another one next week or the week after. And then there's one on Contest Queen. So it's all there. It's all good. Anyway, I will talk to you later. And stay tuned, because I'm also trying to come up with a schedule where I do more lives. But I have 2 lives coming up. One on Contest Queen on Monday and one on Words for Winning on Tuesday. And both are on YouTube and Facebook. So I will see you there. And keep hanging out.